These are the biggest and fattest trees ever discovered on Earth, towering far above what was believed to be possible. It's like someone injected their roots with some serious steroids. So join me as we take a look at the top 15 biggest trees on Earth. Number 15. Sugar Pine. Let's start off our list of giant trees with something a little sweet. Okay, so maybe not that little. Pinus lambertiana, more commonly known as the sugar pine, is the 19th tallest tree in the world, but it's also the tallest and most passive type of pine tree, and it even produces the biggest pine cones you'll find. So don't stand under one for too long, because you do not want to get beamed in the head by one of these things. The pine cones are nice and thick and extra long and look like a bullet plummeting down to the forest floor. And it makes sense that something like the sugar pine can produce something so massive, because your average specimen is going to grow anywhere between 130 to 195 feet tall, with a trunk diameter of 5 to 8 feet. That's too wide for even the tallest of tree huggers, but the sugar pine will still appreciate the gesture. These trees are endemic to western North America and can be found as far north as Oregon and as far south as Baja California, Mexico. But the tallest sugar pine ever recorded was discovered in 2015 in Yosemite National Park, and it's 273 feet tall. Number 14. Mengaris. Mengaris, or Dinizia Excelsa, is another emergent tropical rainforest tree, only this one is found in places like Thailand, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia. It's one of the tallest tropical trees on Earth, and it's so tall that you can find walkways and balconies in certain tropical parks high in the canopy for human use. It's actually pretty cool as long as you make sure not to look down, but they're also incredibly popular amongst the region's giant honeybees, who just love setting up a home base amongst the branches and hanging their massive honeycombs. But that's because the bark of the Mengaris is so slick and slippery that it's virtually impossible for the Southeast Asian sun bears to climb them. Everybody knows that bears love honey. But just how tall do these trees get? Well, the tallest Mengaris on record stood at 289 feet tall. So while it may be enticing to try to climb one of these trees, maybe take a tip from the sun bear and enjoy it from afar. Number 13. Dinizia Excelsa. Moving down to the tropical regions of South America, we have Dinizia Excelsa. This species of tree comes from the family of Fabaceae and enjoys tropical emergent canopy rainforests. So it is fair to say that this gentle bark-covered giant enjoys the humidity, especially around Brazil and Guyana. It's not only the tallest growing species in its family, but it's the tallest tropical tree of any family, growing to be at least 200 feet tall. And while that certainly isn't the tallest tree in the world, it's their trunks that really make this tree a showstopper. When they're on the smaller side, they can be about 50 feet in diameter, but when a tree has reached full maturity and it's older than time itself, it's not uncommon for them to have a diameter of about 75 feet around the base. That's one thick tree. The largest Dinizia Excelsa ever discovered on the Jari River of the Amazon came in at a whopping 290 feet tall. It was also estimated that the tree had plenty of time to grow, about 400 years. Number 12. Noble Fir. We're going to let you know right now that the North American West Coast is going to pop up a lot here. It's just an incredibly gorgeous and lush region of the world, and it's also where you can find the next entry on our list, the Noble Fir. The noble fir is found in the Cascade Range and the coastal range of the extreme northwest of California and Oregon, and thrives in the higher altitudes from 1,000 to 5,000 feet up. That's pretty high for a tree. It's another tree that produces some pretty big pine cones that are hard to miss, especially when one lands right on your head. But if you take a closer look at the noble fir, it may actually look incredibly familiar. And although it's way too big to fit inside of your home, the noble fir is also lovingly referred to as a Christmas tree. Well, let's get down to business. Just how big does this festive giant get? Noble firs usually grow anywhere between 130 to 230 feet tall, with a trunk diameter of 6.5 feet. But the tallest of these coastal giants was recorded at 295 feet tall, with a trunk diameter of just under 9 feet. Number 11. Tasmanian Blue Gum. And here we have yet another eucalyptus tree. So, if you haven't been able to tell already, they're an incredibly special family of tree, with each species outdoing the last. And while many eucalypti may be incredibly susceptible to catching a blaze, they also face the perils of man-made deforestation on an almost daily basis. So when one of these trees manages to exceed its potential growth, it's always cause for celebration, because that means it's a survivor, albeit a lucky one. The tallest blue gum on record lives out in Tasmania and resides dangerously close to the clear-cut areas. And if you don't know what a clear-cut area is, it's a large area of trees that's been completely leveled by loggers, leaving only stumps behind. It's not always a bad thing, but too much of anything is never a good thing. Luckily, though, for this specific blue gum has been protected by the Australian conservation laws, making it 100% illegal to cut this beauty down, which is great because it's gone on to grow over 298 feet. Which is well over 100 feet over the typical growth of the species. Number 10. Manna Gum. Another tall tree found in southern Australia is the manna gum. It's another species of the dry eucalyptus and also goes by a name like ribbon gum and white gum. There's no doubt that this tree has some incredibly fun nicknames, but it's also incredibly big. The base is covered with smooth bark, and as you work your way up the tree, you'll find some nice long lance-shaped leaves, white flowers, and even some fruit. But if you want to get the best possible view of the manna gum's features, then you best not be afraid of heights, because these trees, on average, grow to be a solid 160 feet tall. Wait a second, though, we've already seen some taller trees already, so why exactly is the manna gum here? Well, the tallest manna gum tree on record came in at 300 feet high. But height aside, the manna gum has some pretty cool and helpful applications over the centuries and was used by the indigenous population to help make wooden bowls and shields. It even forms what's known as a lignotuber at the base, which is a large, thick, natural bulb that protects it from fires. Number 9. Browntop Stringybark. The species of tree known as Eucalyptus obliqua goes by plenty of more accessible names, but the favorite has got to be the Browntop Stringybark. These trees are endemic to Southeast Australia and are known for their rough, fibrous, and overall stringy bark. They're also the favorite meal of cute little koala bears who can be found chewing on the bark all the livelong day. But these trees also grow impossibly huge. On average, you're looking at a trunk diameter of about 10 feet, and these brown tops can usually grow up to 300 feet if they're lucky. That's pretty tall. But don't expect to see the king koala all the way at the tippity top. That's way too high even for them. The tallest of these trees was found in Tasmania and was recorded at an insane 324 feet tall. Consider it the king of eucalyptus trees. And while these trees can seem incredibly tough and sturdy, they're also incredibly dry and flammable. So despite being high and mighty, they're incredibly susceptible to wildfires. So play it safe when you're around these gentle giants. Number 8. Alpine Ash. The next tree on our list also belongs to the eucalyptus family, and it's got all sorts of funky nicknames, like white top and even woolly butt. But it's probably best known as the Alpine Ash. It has all of the trademark signs of your typical eucalyptus, like rough, stringy bark near the trunk that becomes white and smooth, as well as the flower buds as you move up to the top of the tree. And of course, it's endemic to the southeastern regions of Australia. The Alpine Ash also has the trademark lignotuber at the base, and they usually grow to be about 130 to 160 feet tall. And you know that's not very impressive at all, considering some of the massive trees we've already seen. But there's one Alpine Ash in Tasmania that puts the rest to absolute shame. This giant Alpine Ash stands at an enormous 330 feet tall. And seeing as how these trees have thick trunks, usually just a few feet in diameter, you're looking at one tall and lanky tree. Number 7. Sir Vim, the White Knight. If you ever make it over to Australia and have a passion for nature, then the Evercreech Forest Reserve is an absolute must on your agenda. It's home to all sorts of gorgeous foliage that you can only find in Australia. And sure, there are some beautiful waterfalls, rivers, and breathtaking hilltop views, but Evercreech also has some of the famous white knights. No, not medieval knights. We're talking about a group of trees that have lived in the area for the last 300 years. They're all massive, and there are about 3 or 4 in particular that have become known simply as the aforementioned white knights. Most of them are around 300 feet in height and 9 to 10 foot in diameter, but the leader of the white knights, Sir Vim, stands high above them all, around 330 feet tall and 36 feet around the base. He's the biggest, the baddest, and probably the oldest, but many who visit Sir Vim will tell you that he doesn't look to be in particularly great shape, meaning his 300-plus year end may soon come to a close. but because trees clearly outlive humans by a long shot, it's likely that his demise will come well after we're all gone. Number 6. Yellow Meranti. In the Malay Peninsula and Thailand is a tree species, better known as yellow Meranti, that's known for being, well, incredibly tall. It was actually declared the second tallest species in the world by specialists, and there were multiple times when various specimens held the title for largest, second, or third largest tropical species of tree in the world. Since then, they've all lost the crown, but there is one tree in particular that doesn't want to give up its status so easily. The Danam Valley Conservation Area in Borneo is without a doubt one of the most beautiful tropical and downright amazing places to visit in the entire world. If you get there at the right time, you'll see an unearthly cloud of fog hanging over the canopy, while orangutans swing from branch to branch and the giant water monitor lizards patter about. It's like being in the Jungle Book, but Danam Valley is also home to the tallest yellow Meranti in the world, standing at a crazy 330 feet tall, which I think is just tall enough for Tarzan to keep up with his monkey friends. Number 5. Unnamed Giant Sequoia. Sequoia dendron giganteum, or just giant sequoia, is, well, a giant sequoia. These trees also belong to the redwood family and are some of the oldest living organisms on Earth. These things are insanely huge. On average, a giant sequoia is going to grow anywhere between 164 to 279 feet, with a trunk diameter from 20 to 26 feet. But there's one place in California where these trees grow exceptionally large. The Redwood Mountain Grove is home to lots of these massive old-timers, with one quite literally standing above the rest at 314 feet tall. That's about as tall as a 28-story building. And while these gorgeous giants are on display in national parks for all to see, there is somewhat of a downside, because giant sequoias are considered an endangered species, with less than just 80,000 remaining. Number 4. Raven's Tower. We're in the final stretch here, and there's nowhere to go but up, and so the next entry on our list of really big trees can be found somewhere in California's Prairie Creek Redwood State Park. This Sitka spruce has been named Raven's Tower by the local foresters, and they're the only ones who know of the exact location. Raven's Tower, though, stands at a whopping 317 feet tall, and believe it or not, your average Sitka spruce can grow to be 300 feet tall, so compared to its cohorts, Raven's Tower isn't much taller. But sadly, many of these trees were cut down for logging purposes for more than a century, and well before official measurements could be taken, so it's definitely within the realm of possibility that another Sitka spruce was even taller than Raven's Tower. Now, many of these sit in the protected state park, and they're so tall that much of their growth is facilitated by the moisture of the thick fog that often surrounds the area. Well, that's pretty cool. Number 3. Dorner Fir. Also known as the brumette fir, the Dorner fir is a competitor in a very close race for being the second largest tree in the world. You'll see why in just a moment. The Dorner fir stands an incredibly impressive 327 feet tall. That's the same size as a 30-story building and more than half the size of the Space Needle in Seattle. But it's also the second tallest non-redwood tree in the world. This is a coastal tree and stands as just a remnant of the massive old growth on the eastern side of Coos County, Oregon. And while the state of Oregon is home to some of the most beautiful, oldest, and tallest trees in the world, many of them were sadly cut down by the logging industry. And you can probably imagine the Dorner fir grows in a forest owned by the Bureau of Land Management and is totally protected. Luckily, the Dorner fir isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Number 2. Centurion. Just barely beating out the Dorner fir for our number 2 spot is the tree simply known as Centurion. Centurion is a Eucalyptus regnans tree living out in Tasmania, Australia, with a trunk diameter of just over 13 feet and stands only 6 inches taller than the Dorner fir at 327.5 feet tall. Maybe it was standing up on its tippy-toe roots when they took the measurements. Centurion wasn't discovered until 2008, when employees of the Forestry Tasmania were analyzing data of the surrounding forest using a LiDAR mapping and assessment system. Now people come from far and wide to witness this big eucalyptus, and it's on the bucket list of just about every nature enthusiast. We all certainly hope that Centurion has a long life ahead of it. It has managed to survive both logging and fires. But in February of 2019, a new hollow in the base was created as a result of a bushfire that just devastated the surrounding area. Centurion survived, but it didn't walk away unscathed, and the damage serves as a reminder of its fragility despite its majesty. Number 1. Hyperion. And now you have it, the biggest tree in the world. Hyperion is a coastal redwood in California's Redwood National Park that stands a whopping 381.1 feet tall. That's about 66 feet taller than London's Big Ben and 73 feet taller than the Statue of Liberty. This redwood was discovered in August of 2006 by two naturalists, Chris Atkins and Michael Taylor, who are known for discovering tall trees. Many experts say that Hyperion is probably around 600 years old, but some believe that it could be as old as 800. And like some of the other trees we've seen today, Hyperion's exact location is kept a secret in order to protect it from damage. We can't have any people coming in and carving their names into something this amazing, no way. In fact, researchers have suggested that the biggest thing keeping the 35-story Hyperion from growing any taller is woodpecker damage. And so while the exact location of Hyperion is somewhat of a mystery, many people have put directions on the internet. And while it may be tempting to visit this one-of-a-kind natural masterpiece, too many visitors creating social trails can do some serious damage to the surrounding roots, so it's probably best to take one for the team and view Hyperion either from a distance or simply from a picture.
Watch our nature playlist for more top 15 videos about beautiful nature. Sit back, relax, and binge watch all of our best nature videos.